I'm representing a non-for-profit organization in Copenhagen, Denmark, and it's called Global Fashion Agenda. And we look into the fashion industry and try to make the fashion industry more sustainable. Let me start with setting the stage and explain a bit of background on the global fashion industry. It's a big industry. 1.5 trillion euro turnover, that is roughly 6.5 trillion Brazilian real, sort of turnover. It employs around 60 million people worldwide. 60 million people, many of them in developing countries. Fashion is always said to be raising states out of poverty, and I think this still happens today. And another peculiarity about the industry is that 2/3 of the workforce are female. It's a very complex setup. It's a complex network, a production network, where many small companies participate on the brand side, on the retail side, and on the manufacturing side. And it's a very staggered industry where you have companies that do the final product, you have companies that do the garment, you have companies that do the filament, they are producers of the raw material. So you have many tiers, and that makes it incredibly complicated. And typically, none of the brands that you're selling your products from sort of own any of those tiers. And in that way, controlling the quality, controlling the ecological footprint, and the social quality are very, very difficult. The fashion industry is a heavy user of water. Some of our raw materials are very water intense. Cotton, for example, is one of the most water-intense agricultural products. And the processes that we're having, for example, for jeans production, are incredibly water-intense as well. So this industry puts additional stress on some of the planetary boundaries. A similar situation on CO2. Our CO2 footprint is not great. But a global industry with global transportation, be it by ship of the merchandise or by air freight, is just adding to a negative CO2 footprint and challenging sort of our resource situation. Most people don't know, but the fashion industry is the second largest user of chemicals in the world. If you compare all industries, fashion is the second largest user of chemicals. This industry is growing. We estimate that in the next 10 to 15 years, until 2030, there will be about a 60% growth in that industry in terms of pieces, in terms of volume, 60%. We need to find new ways. We need to find new ways to produce and deliver products to the consumer. Otherwise, it is not possible to continue up with the growth. For us, it was important when we want to guide the industry, we need to have data. We need to have a database, understanding where we are at this point in time and how the development in the industry is. And that's why we have started last year to do a first analysis of sustainability on a global basis. That simply wasn't there, wasn't existing, and it should help us sort of as a solid foundation for all kinds of recommendations where priorities should be set in the industry sort of going forward. And I would like to share some of the results with you today of that research that we have been doing. The data that you will see is based on the HIG index. The HIG index is an index powered by the Sustainable Apparel Coalition. That's a non-for-profit organization that's working with the fashion industry. They are providing a self-evaluation tool. And with this self-evaluation tool, brands, manufacturers, suppliers can measure their current state of sustainability and can draw conclusions how they actually can improve the situation. If you implement all solutions environmentally and socially, you could maximum reach 100. And in that way, if we take the average for the industry, the average is at 38. This is not really impressive. So the average of the fashion industry isn't even delivering half of what technically would be possible today. What was surprising for us when we compared last year to this year was that the bottom and the top performers actually only marginally improved, only with 1%. And the real improvement was in the middle. So the companies that are already on a journey, they had made a big stride. The bottom didn't move at all. And what we realized is the top performers are coming into areas where it's becoming more difficult to become significantly better. What's happening when you are deciding, I don't need that piece of garment any longer, that piece of fashion any longer? Unfortunately, in most cases, it's ending up in landfill, which is not a very sustainable solution. In some situations, it is downcycled, it is used in lower quality products, and only in about 3 to 5% it is actually reused in the fashion industry again. It is put back, it's made into raw materials, recycled and reused again. So that's why the number is so low. The increase from 9 to 17% in the last year is predominantly coming from big collecting schemes of big fashion retailers. So they ask consumers, please bring back your own products. We recycle them for you. We do something for you with them. So that's actually increasing the number at the end. On the other side, on the beginning of the value chain, you see relatively low scores as well. Design and development isn't great at this point in time. We don't design for sustainability. We don't design for reuse. We use so many mixed fibers in our products that are incredibly difficult to take apart at the end of the journey, and therefore it is a very problematic product that is given to the consumer and can't be recycled so easily at the end. Another very low area is raw materials. The fact that we have sort of either very resource-intense raw materials like cotton, using a lot of water, for example, or a lot of polyester mixed fibers in our product just makes it difficult to become sustainable, and that's one of the areas that the industry has been working but needs to work significantly going forward in order to become more sustainable. Another cut of the data that I personally find very insightful is when you look at the different price segments and sizes of companies. You see the premium segment, mid-price and entry price segment here listed. And the first conclusion is that actually luxury companies, high-price companies are not better than cheap companies that offer cheaper products, entry price level or mid-price level. So price does not differentiate on sustainability. The only thing that really differentiates on sustainability is size. So size matters completely on sustainability. The largest companies in that industry invest the most in sustainability. They put the biggest resources in sustainability in terms of teams and money, in terms of innovation. And that shows a complete difference sort of in their sustainability footprint. So that's actually good news. The big really take it serious and are driving sustainability. The flip side of it is the bad news. This is a very fragmented industry. On a global scale, about 50% of the volume is done by small and medium-sized companies. They are utterly unsustainable. So while it may be nice to have that huge brand portfolio and the wonderful choice for a consumer with many small sort of interesting labels out there that you can choose from a sustainability perspective, this choice is just bad because they don't have the resources, they don't invest, they don't prioritize typically sort of on sustainability, and that's why it's dragging down the average rates on sustainability quite significantly. They're actually the ones with the highest numbers of sustainability today. Some of them are medium-sized companies, 500, 800 million euro turnover, but their CEOs, owners, leadership teams are so devoted on sustainability that their whole value chain is built on it. And with that, even if you're small, you can make it happen. But unfortunately, those are the outliers. The first one is, if you are in fashion business, you should know who your tier 1 and tier 2 suppliers are and what their environmental and social footprint is. That's not so difficult, frankly. It may cost a bit of time, it may cost a bit of energy, but if you are a responsible fashion brand, you should know about that. The second, there are so many programs out there on water, energy, and chemical efficient use that you just need to talk to some of your friendly competitors, you talk to industry associations and take those topics in. I think that should be an easy one as well to do. And then the third one is make sure that there are respectful and secure work environments all over your suppliers. Just check your own supply chain and make sure that the minimum standards are properly dealt with. And that's one of the good news, by the way. We see more and more collaboration in the industry. While 5 years ago, the big companies wouldn't talk to each other on sustainability, today they sit in the same room, they struggle for the same solutions, and that hopefully will accelerate things going forward. And we really need to pool money initiatives on those four on the bottom. The first is about sustainable raw materials. We need to invest significantly more in new material mix, material combinations. The second part is a closed loop, a circular industry. We need to think more at the beginning of the development of the products, what is happening to those products at the end of life. And start closing the loop with the aspiration that more and more of the products at the end will actually be taken in, recycled and reused so that the industry is becoming more sustainable. When I talk to CEOs, there's often the question, and I had some of the discussions, when we do it, it's more expensive and the consumer doesn't want to pay for it. It's true, the consumer typically doesn't want to pay for it, but the good news, the way that we are looking at it is actually there's a positive business case emerging, and on several things there is already a positive business case on sustainability. So for example, on resource efficiency, many of the measures that you can take today on electricity, on water, on recycling are actually having a positive business case. So that if you use some of the, for example, clean dyeing processes, you use less chemicals, you can save a lot of money. So those are things that are paying off immediately today. So if fashion needs a bigger change, then digital is definitely one of the core trigger points to make that change happen. Digitization will affect the whole value chain of this very fragmented industry. And it will actually allow us to bring the fragmented element of the industries together. There is already a lot happening on digitization. So, in 2020, robots will probably carry out 25% of the manufacturing. So this whole SUBot development that we see quite a lot in the US will become pretty massive. This transformation has the chance to improve, to trigger the environmental and social performance of the industries a lot, of this industry a lot. It will improve as well the company performance. Of course, it will have a very significant impact on employment as well. And let's not only talk about the positive dimensions, it will have some negative effects as well. The more we automate, the more we endanger some of the jobs of those 60 million people that are currently employed by this industry. But I think we need to face that development, and we need to discuss with governments sort of how we can actually smoothen that journey, how we can make that an acceptable transition sort of for everyone. They are looking at basically redefining their role as the middleman and talk a lot about the application of digital technologies in the supply chain. And they actually believe that they can reduce the supply chain from the start of the design to the handover of the product in store. This is currently 38 weeks on average. 38 weeks on average. And they believe with digitization they can cut it down to half, to 19 weeks. They believe as well that the fastest supply chain can be already today 4 to 7 days. Of course, depends on the means of transportation. So with that, we potentially move into a completely new business model. Suddenly we don't overproduce, we don't sort of produce way too much, and then we can only sell half of it at full price, and then we start to sort of sell it at a lower price and a lower price and a lower price. Maybe we can move to an area where we only produce what you actually want to buy. And that will take a lot of waste sort of out of the system. So let me conclude. Fashion is a large and sort of global industry, but unfortunately its sustainability pulse today is really weak. While I believe there's a clear roadmap for change, we won't make it with incremental improvements. Incremental changes will not be enough. We need to have a transformational change, and the digital transformation will actually allow us to leapfrog sort of into new solutions to make things happen in a much faster way. This will not always be easy. This will have quite a significant strain, as I believe, on some of the workforce, but it's worth the price, and sort of I look forward to see how this development is going on sort of in the future.